On this episode of Wines to Find, your hosts introduce you to two members of an international social media collaboration called SIPS around the globe and discuss how they are helping to promote the wine industry through their love of wine. Let's listen.
Hi, I'm Michelle.
And I'm Sandy.
We're two sisters tasting and reviewing wine with the goal of taking the WTF out of
Wines to Find.
Welcome to episode 24 of Wines to Find. Our wines today are a Reverie 2 Rutherford Cabernet Sauvignon, a Chablis Premier Cru Les Vacopins, and a 2017 Rivers Marie Sonoma Coast Pinot Noir. So Sandy and I are very excited to have a couple of folks with us today. They are representatives from SIPS Around the Globe, a collaboration of worldwide wine experts from around the globe representing 11 countries across 4 continents. With a combined reach of over 100,000 followers, their goal is to share their love of wine while assisting wineries to maximize their global reach and marketing efforts. With us today is John Jackson. His Instagram handle is @AttorneySom, and he is the U.S. representative. He's joining us from the state of Texas. And we have Jessica. Her Instagram handle is @WineBubbleLover, and she is joining us from the Netherlands. Welcome, John and Jessica. We're excited to have you guys today.
Thanks very much. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yes, we're super excited to share with folks what y'all are doing.
Yes, and this is Wines to Find first international podcast. So we are so excited to be able to go global.
Yeah, we've been on the road and now we're global, baby. First of all, like we explained, the first thing we do is we introduce our wines. So we'll kick it off by saying that in order to share with our global audience and our friends that we've just met, we decided that we wanted to share a wine from a smaller vineyard in California that we have a close connection with. So we have Reverie 2, a 2017 Cabernet Sauvignon from Rutherford. John and Jessica, what do you guys have?
I brought a Chablis Premier Cru by Winery Albert Bichot.
And why did you choose it today?
I chose this wine because it was actually my last visit while still unable to travel before the COVID-19 started. I visited Burgundy and Chablis, so I have big memories, and I had to do with that in the last 2 months to think back to that visit, and it was absolutely a tremendous visit that I had. I attended a masterclass with Bichot, and that's why I brought this bottle on the table.
And I'm sure we're all thinking of a return to normalcy. So that's great to bring that back.
Yes, it brings back good memories.
Yes, very good. And John, what do you have today?
Yes, I have a 2017 Rivers Marie Pinot Noir from Sonoma Coast.
And you selected it?
Yes, Rivers Marie has long been one of my favorite producers. It's actually the personal label for consultant Thomas Rivers Brown, who makes wine for a lot of wineries in California and does a fantastic job. This one is made in fairly small quantities, and the only way you can get it is by being on his mailing list. And so I've been a member of that for quite a while, and this one is actually fairly reasonably priced, given the quality and given the price of some of the other wines that he makes for both himself and for other wineries.
Okay, well, I can't wait to hear the notes about each of these wines. Jessica, if you want to kick it off with the notes about the Chablis and what you learned about it, perhaps during that masterclass.
Yes. It was me and Miss Cecilia, the head winemaker of Bichot, Albert Bichot, that leads and manages the whole estate in Chablis. And I visited many vineyards with her in Chablis. And Chablis is like a patchwork area. It has all these little plots of land that make huge differences of what wines are produced there. And so 5 steps ahead could deliver such a different wine than where you're standing. So that got me really interested in soil, in terroir. And I picked this Chablis Premier Cru from Clos Les Vacopins. Et Les Vacopins, cool climate regions often have an exposure of their grapes on the south face. And the Les Vacopins is an exception. It doesn't have that south-facing exposure for the grapes, so it delivers a different profile of Chablis. They have two plots of land, Albert Bichot, which is, by the way, the second largest producer in Chablis. They have two like that little plots that just deliver a different kind of style because the sun disappears earlier than the southern exposure plots, and so it's so steely what the Chablis is made of in these pieces of land. So steely, so mineral. The soil is a Kimmeridgian soil. To me, it's tasting like the pure expression of Chablis, because Chablis is a cool climate area, and the sun is getting warmer. During the climate change, it's getting warmer. So the south exposure plots do get even more sun and more warmth. So the east or north-faced plots still are able to deliver these very, very pure, steely Chablis. And this is a perfect example of it. It has fresh notes of apple. It has it has, of course, a high acidity. It has small nuances of oak because this is a vintage 2017, and that is the year that the head winemaker Cecilia started to work for Bichot. So this is not her first vintage. What Cecilia has done for the winery is that she reduced the use of oak. I believe she said something like it was 40% before she came that was oak aged, and now she's the head winemaker. It's only 20 to 25% which has oak aging, and it's so perfectly balanced. And especially it's warm in the Netherlands now. It's one of my favorite drinks. It has notes of candied fruit, apricot, quince. It's a full-bodied wine. However, it's steely. It's still a full-bodied wine, and that's why I'm so attracted to bring this on the table and to present it to you.
Well, we're so glad that you're sharing it with us. Now, is this something that we could get in the States?
Yes, Albert Bichot sells his wines in over 250 countries.
Very good. Okay. So that...
Yeah, I thought that was only fair to bring something on the table that you could actually have access to.
Yes. Thank you for thinking of that. Excellent. Well, it sounds delightful. And so for our listeners, being that we're all in 3 different locations, we are not sharing the same wine. So we're getting the notes, but we're not getting the taste. So we'll have to go seek it out because it does definitely sound like a wine to find.
Yes, especially I enjoy a Chardonnay or the Chardonnay that is not as oaked. So I'm quite pleased to hear that it's dropped down to only 20% oaked. Mm-hmm. That sounds right up my alley.
Yeah, true. And even in France and in Chablis, they have been following the trend in using more oak a couple of years back, but they're reducing it all now. And of course, the Petit Chablis or the regular Chablis often don't have that oak aging, but this is a Premier Cru I brought to the table, and the Grand Crus, of course, do still have, in many cases, a little bit of oak aging. But that is only giving the more body to the wine,
yes.
Not that vanilla dominant.
Not the overlay of.
Yeah. No.
Oak can sometimes overpower the grape, and that was a trend for a while.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear they're not doing that anymore.
Yes, me too, and especially for Chablis. It's not suiting its profile. Chablis should be lean, still, and pure, fresh.
So while we're sipping and talking about, or you're sipping wine number 1, and we're wishing we were sipping wine number 1. Tell us a little bit. Tell us a little bit about SIPS around the globe and what your community effort is, and how you got to the point of combining together. And then we can talk about each of you individually.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. I'm happy to. Let's start where it started for me. It was last summer that I signed up for the WSET. And at the same time, I registered for the platform Instagram. I've been a wine lover for years, but that was my first action to join the platform. And it didn't take long before I entered a new world of trying to help wineries to promote and highlight their wines. And I did that. I was very happy to do so. But then it's not my profession. So it took us some time to learn that it was fun what I did, but how useful was that just to do a post once and do a shout out for a winery or a certain wine? And how successful would that be for the winery? So that made me think that me, by myself, was not really capable of offering that service to actually make a difference for a winery or a winemaker. So I often advised them, like, maybe you should be contacting someone else after me, so you get to highlight your wine twice in the same month, because that would be more useful. So I ended up in advising all these winemakers to contact. But then I thought, like, oh, that's a lot of work for them, and they should be making wine, you know? So that brought me into the idea, like, I just need a group of people that we could be that network for winemakers, so they don't have to search the Instagram that they're often not so familiar with, especially not in France. So that was where the idea on my side is born, to cooperate with like people like John. We were connected way before that, and I know that I love his posts, and I know what wines he brings to the table. So yeah, I had my preferences who I wanted to work with, and I did know one thing: it had to be worldwide, because winemakers come from all over the world. So you need to have a representation from all over the world. So yeah.
And you've pulled in an amazing group from some excellent locations to get that peek into, and that's something that with Sandy and I, when we did the podcast, we want to expose ourselves to wines from all over, and some of our struggle is how to get access to them and get information on which ones are worthy of trying.
Exactly. Yeah. Then, so this is perfect for even the consumer to be able to have you guys come together and pull your knowledge together, not just even the wineries. Right.
And a little bit about you. You're a hobbyist like we are. You did this simply for the love of wine. This is not your profession, correct?
Yes. Yeah, yes. Wine is my passion, and I have another profession. So, well, maybe then you're free to think for alternatives, because it's not the way I make my money. So I just was there to really help winemakers, and so
it's an altruistic goal versus a materialistic goal, which is always good.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's impressive. You joined Instagram a year ago, and you already have 10,000 followers on your account. So it took off. It sounds like you.
It took off. Yeah.
That's very impressive, just from the Instagram perspective, because it's a struggle for accounts to get started and to gain following. So congratulations to have that reach and that quickly.
Thank you.
Well, it shows the value.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's better because I've worked for it. In the beginning, I did not care so much for the numbers. But then I did realize if you want to help winemakers, you want to have a higher reach. So you need more audience. So I got more focused. So yeah, that's what it did to me.
And you being where you're located, you're in prime location to get access quickly to some excellent vineyards and winemakers in multiple countries. Even I'm sure it's a quick train ride to France. It's a quick train ride here to be able to pursue your hobby.
Yes, true. Yes. So I've visited many vineyards over the last 15 years or so. Yes, because Europe is relatively small, at least compared to the United States. So it took me anywhere, and despite the Netherlands is not really, it is, but not really a wine growing country. It is in Europe, I think, in the third place of importing a wine country. So it's an important customer. Let us say it like that. The Netherlands is number 3, UK is number 1 of importing wine. So also in that perspective, we've been looking at the team who's coming from wine growing countries, who is probably a good customer to like wine distributors. It's a good mix of where everyone is based. Yes.
That's a very interesting perspective too, because when you look at it from a producer, obviously if you're a large producer, you're looking for a large audience. But if you're an importer, you're looking for access to good wines. So that's a very good perspective.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So you can easily connect if you have that audience, if you have that network of distributors and winemakers. It's easily connected, those people. Yeah.
John, would you like to tell us about your selection?
Sure, that sounds great. So I selected a 2017 Rivers Marie Sonoma Coast Pinot Noir. It's about 14% alcohol by volume. The Sonoma Coast is a well-known region for varietals like Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. There's actually a fairly cool climate there, and you get a lot of the coastal breezes. And so the fruit doesn't get too ripe. It gets ripe enough certainly to produce a nice tasty wine, but it's not overly extracted, and there's still lots of good acidity and a refreshing palate. And so lately I've been drinking a lot of Pinot Noir because it's already very warm in Texas. It's in the 90s. And so I still like red wine, though. So I tend to go to a little bit lighter red wine around this time of year. And so this is the perfect choice for this season in Texas.
Yes, that's what. So usually I thought until we started this endeavor that I did not like Pinot Noir. And I have since learned that I do like Pinot Noir. I just wasn't trying the right ones, and I didn't know what style I liked and this and that and the other. So Sandy really likes Pinot.
I do. That's one of my favorite varietals. And Michelle was like, I just don't know how I'm going to do this. And I was like, just try them.
And what I'm excited about is now I can drink red wine in the summer, because usually it's so hot where we are that I'm like, nobody wants to have a heavy cab. You know, it's 95 degrees outside. So now I'm like, yes, I can have steak and Pinot this summer.
Exactly. It's very food friendly as well. And this one in particular has lots of acidity, and it has a red fruit profile. So there's lots of cherries and raspberries and maybe even a little bit of plum. Then it also has some intriguing floral notes, which is really interesting on the nose. So you have some blossom and notes like that are very interesting. And I also tend to get some orange peel notes.
Oh, nice.
Sounds really good.
And would you say it's more of an old world or a new world style Pinot?
It's definitely a new world style, just in terms of the fruit profile, but it's definitely not super rich and extracted like some of the 15 and 16% alcohol by volume Pinot that you can get in some places of California.
Mm-hmm. They're trying to run with the big boy when they do that. Yes, and I do like the New World style. Sounds like one I should try.
So, John, how did you get into SIPS around the globe?
Yeah, so I first started getting into wine probably in the 2007 time period. And it started when I actually tried a bottle of the Opus One from Napa, the highly regarded collaboration between Mondavi and Mouton. And I was just blown away by the wine when I tried it. And within 6 months, I did my first trip to Napa and did some winery visits and really, really loved it. And ever since then, I've become progressively more interested in wine. And like Jessica, I started taking the WSET courses. And I'm currently working on my level 4 diploma now.
Wow.
I'm 30% done with that. So making good progress there. And I just really enjoy it. And I am an attorney by day and have been an attorney for a while. But due to my interest in wine, I was always looking to become a little bit more involved in it and figure out how I could get involved with wine consistent with my work obligations as an attorney. And that's when I kind of stumbled across Instagram. And I did it fairly recently as well, maybe about 1.5 years ago. Longer than Jessica, but not for very long. And at first, I just kind of posted a picture and didn't really write any notes or anything. And then people started asking me about my thoughts about the wine. And then it turned into a pretty good creative outlet for me, because not only do I enjoy the wine, but I enjoy writing as well. And so then I started working on longer captions and providing more detailed notes. And that's sort of what I'm known for now. And so
I've enjoyed many of your captions, yes, and notes. They have been very helpful and interesting.
And they're very well written.
Yes.
And, just the way you lay them out is very nice.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I definitely spent a lot of time on them. And I think due to my background as an attorney, I make sure that there's no typos and those sorts of things. I'm kind of obsessed with punctuation and all those things.
Yeah.
It's hard for me not to look at it that way. So I'll typically do a draft and then go back and review it again. So shortly after Jessica joined, I was fairly new to Instagram as well, but we met through Instagram because we post a lot of the same types of content. And so we've been following each other for a long time. And then it was interesting how it worked out, because I actually reached out to her about doing a collaboration for maybe one particular post here or there. Mm-hmm. And that's when she mentioned the SIPS project to me. And so I immediately joined and have been working on it for about a month or so now.
And again, given that both of you are in professions outside of any sort of beverage industry, you're approaching this from the pure hobbyist, your love of the fruit and the makers and the stories and your passion as a hobbyist, and you just want to share that passion with others.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And one thing that I do is I often travel for either vacation or work. But once I do that, I always try to visit wine growing regions and visit with wineries. And so oftentimes when I plan a trip, I'll reach out to wineries in advance and arrange for visits, and then go there and then taste through the wines and meet with either the owner or the winemaker, and then post about my experiences following the trip.
And that, and honestly, it's helping you because you're pursuing your passion. But I think in more cases than not, it's helping the winemaker get that exposure. And that word of mouth is what many of them rely on to grow their audience.
Michelle and I started this podcast because we wanted to grow our palate. And then we also wanted to create a community and help others be able to identify which wine should they pick, because there's just so many. But then as we started in this journey, we realized that producers have the flip side problem of the consumer. There are so many producers that then how do they get their story, their wine, their product out to the customers? And so we have seen the problem on both sides. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's between Instagram, podcasts, it just makes the world such a smaller place, which is why when I saw your post about this SIPS around the globe, I thought we really needed to have you guys on so that you could explain your project and your passion, because that's what we saw.
And your community goals.
Yes,
because
your community goals.
We think we have similar goals.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And certainly in the United States, there's been such a concentration of the distributors that now it's difficult for small wineries to get representation. And so those direct sales from the winery are becoming increasingly important, especially for the small winemakers in the United States. And
then you add COVID on top of it, and it's just, a lot of them rely on that foot traffic of being in say Napa or Sonoma or whatever wine country, and just getting the traveler that says, oh, well, that's an interesting spot. There's some great reviews. I'm going to go check it out. And that's just closed to them and has been for several months. And that's devastating to many of these small producers.
It is. And so one of the things we've tried to do to make up for that is we offer live tastings as well on the SIPS platform. And so Jessica does a number of those, for example, and I've done some recently, and that's pretty well received as well, because then our audience can hear directly from the winery.
And I know that they're appreciative of those connections and your wider audience as well, and getting access to them. So we're going to talk about, because this is a good spot to talk about a small producer that pretty much only relies on word of mouth. He doesn't do a lot of advertising our connection is we have a good friend of ours that has grown a great relationship with a particular winemaker in California. And when we started this podcast, they were like, okay, well, you have to have him on. And so we did. He's going to be on next week's episode, actually. As of this airing, it would be retrospective. It would be episode, what is it, 20?
Yes.
It's going to be episode 20. And his name is Grant Long, and he owns A&R, but he also owns Reverie. And right before all of this happened, he acquired Reverie in the last couple years. And that's where he started his wine career. That was his mentor. And it was Reverie 1. And then when he acquired it, it became Reverie 2. And when that friend of ours said, you should be on this podcast, Grant said, I don't know. I don't do advertising. I generally just do word of mouth. And we said, well, this is word of mouth. It's just word of mouth, to a lot of people who aren't physically there. And I think that a lot of especially with COVID, the wineries are realizing that they're going to have to look at other methods and other connections besides distribution, which is not an option for a lot of them, and travel and tourism, because they're going to be hamstringed for a while with this. So groups like yours and podcasts like ours, I think, are going to be key and integral to the wine industry and the smaller producers staying in business. That being said, we have Reverie 2's Cabernet Sauvignon, and we're happy to share it because we think his wines are great. And if you guys haven't tried them, you should. The note on the tasting notes direct from the winery is, this is rich in color and in flavor. This wine offers earthy scents of blackcurrant and nutmeg. Meanwhile, there are layers of blackberry, tea leaves, and cocoa which tantalize the palate. Ripe black fruit mingles with hints of peppercorn and autumn spices, serving as the perfect encore. It has an ABV of 14.9, and it was grown in the Rutherford region. We usually rely heavily on the winemaker's notes, and then we talk about what we feel we taste.
I do. I taste a lot of pepper, some oak, not overly oaked. It's really very nice, well balanced.
Ooh, there is some fruit there.
There is some fruit, yes.
I like that.
A little bit more so than a typical Cabernet Sauvignon, I would think.
It's very fruit forward, but not in that negative jammy way.
No, it's not jammy and not sweet. It's got a lot of tannins.
It does. Very balanced. And this bottle retails at $84.99, so it is a little bit higher priced, but the quality is definitely there. It sounds like you both have traveled extensively and have had opportunity to interact in person with some fantastic winemakers. Can you share maybe a great story or a great reflection that you have from that opportunity that you have to have connected with so many?
Yes. Well, let me just talk about the last visit before COVID-19 hit us. It was a short travel to Champagne area, and after that I went to Burgundy. I contacted a few champagne makers because I know that they were interested in having their wineries highlighted. So I said, well, I'm there, so I'll visit you and talk about your wines. And so I was warmly invited by several champagne makers, Benoit Meunier, for example. And he showed me the vineyards. We drove through the landscape, this beautiful landscape. And he showed me all his plots in the Côte Blanc. And he's located in Cuy. But I think it's the best way of learning about the region itself. Like John said, I'm a student WSET level 3. But that's by the book. And I've been learning so much more from my travels. Like John, I travel a lot for work and for myself. And it's the best way of actually remembering those things because, like I referred to the Chablis area about Kimmeridge's soil, I was never much into terroir. I knew that it meant a lot for wine, but then again, it's such a theoretic and so many little details that I could not read it. But once you visit and you travel the vineyards with the head winemaker or the champagne producer in that case, it's a different story. you'll never forget what he actually said about his plots and which plots he specifically cherishes because it's delivering such beautiful champagnes, and that he tells you why. He puts his hands in the soil and shows you what's in it. And then you drive another kilometer in the same Côte Blanc, and he does the same, and the soil is so different. So for me, the traveling is the best way to learn and to enjoy the whole wine world. It's not only the tasting, it's actually the rewarding afterwards, of course, to taste the end product. But knowing and the story about the champagne and the wine is as beautiful as tasting the wine, if you ask me. So, yes, that was my last experience in visiting vineyards and winemakers.
It sounds like it's provided you a greater appreciation for the terroir, and is really, when you talk about learning, that hands-on learning is what really solidified it for you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, definitely. And now the big difference is because I joined Instagram, it had connected me to many distributors in my own country, and I've visited winemakers for a long time already. But now I'm always interested: is that beautiful champagne of you? Is that sold in my country? Because that's my main concern.
Exactly.
Right.
Can I get it once I get home?
Right.
Exactly. Do I have to fill up my trunk, or am I fine with just one box? And then kind of just buy it there. But often those beautiful gems that you find in Champagne are not sold in your country. So, but in the meanwhile, in the last year, I've been connecting several champagne makers with distributors in the Netherlands, where the champagnes are now available in my country. So that gives me such an awesome feeling,
So
That's
you are
very
helping the
good.
consumer. Excellent.
Yes.
I was wondering, since you've done the WSET 2, you're going on 3. What made you decide to do that? Was there a catalyst for you to make the jump, to go from just a pure hobbyist learning and tasting on your own to to a more formal education?
Yes, I felt the need to be educated. I work for the Ministry of Justice for the Dutch government, and you need to be educated to do your job. And I find the same, and I felt a bit, I don't know, reluctant to say things about wine to others because I wasn't educated. I did say a few things like, oh, this is beautiful, this is lovely, and it's from there, and I know this, but I felt reluctant. So I thought, like, well, why don't you get yourself educated and you're fine talking about it? So it was more that point of view that got me into registering for the course.
Thank you. I was just curious as to what pushed you over the edge.
Yeah.
And then it became an addiction after I finished 2. I thought it was absolutely amazing. Met so many people, so I had to follow up with 3. Yeah.
Since we've been introduced into this wine world here recently, since January, that's one of the things that I have found is that people from every aspect, from the winemakers to the wine distributors to the enthusiasts, they are just such wonderful people.
Mm-hmm.
They really are. So I can see why you became addicted.
I can too. John, do you have a favorite recollection that you'd like to share?
Sure. It seems like it was so long ago, but it was actually just the first week in March.
Years ago now.
I was actually very fortunate that I had a trip planned then and was able to go through with it. But I was going to Los Angeles for business. And so I had some meetings there with one of my clients. And he's also been a wine lover for a long time. And so we ended up driving up to Santa Ynez after our meeting was over. And we did touring in that region for a couple of days. And that's the area, if people have seen the movie Sideways, that's the area of focus on that movie. And so that's heavily focused on Pinot Noir and also some Chardonnay, among other things. But I was able to meet with the some wineries while I was there and do a number of tastings and visits. Yeah, including some private opportunities where it was just us and we get tours of the barrel room and the entire property. And really a pretty spectacular experience. And the food there is just amazing as well. Lots of small restaurants and everything is farm to table and pairs really well with all the local wines, and really just a fantastic place to visit. And it was even more special because I was able to get it in right before traveling was prohibited.
Given that you guys have interaction privately, perhaps with some of these folks that are connected around the world, what is the sense of when things might get back to normal? Do you guys have a sense of that? When travel might resume?
I'm not sure about travel. I think that's challenging, especially internationally. But I think domestic travel, I think, would be permitted to some extent, I believe, in the summer, I think. But it varies by state as well. And certainly Texas has been one of the leaders in terms of opening things up again.
So is South Carolina.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, last night, for example, the rules were relaxed such that restaurants can serve people in person up to 50% capacity right now.
Yeah, so South Carolina's been there for about a week, maybe two.
I think I think March or May 18th, even though it seems like longer. I believe that
the weeks just drag on.
It's like a time warp.
Yeah. And I just recently traveled up to the Northeast, and just driving across the state lines, there's just a different vibe totally. The roads are very, very scarce, pretty much the more north you get. And in South Carolina, definitely there's more cars on the road and more interaction. But we don't have as much.
We just don't have as many cases.
No. And our population is small too. So, we just, I don't think we've been as impacted. We don't have the same challenges. And we don't have an understanding of it either, because we're not in an area where it's been so prevalent that you have to be as concerned. But that being said, we would like to travel, and we would like to be able to get back to being able to visit and interact, because that is important. And our hope for the industry is that is not something that is a prolonged event. Prohibition, essentially, because I think that even just from your two stories, that the biggest help that these winemakers can get is to be able to welcome folks in to share their stories and to share their plot of land and talk specifically about it.
I agree with that. Well, these virtual tastings are nice. There's still no substitute for actually visiting and being there and meeting people in person.
No, exactly. Just even recalling back from Jessica's story, she said she really, even though she was reading about the terroir and she's visited wineries before, but until she actually goes there and speaks to them and sees exactly what they're talking about and is able to make that connection, it doesn't really resonate.
No. So do you guys, as a worldwide group, have any plans to help assist others with travel in accommodations or anything in that bent?
I was actually, well, I travel a lot to the Provence, south of France, and I was wondering how to get to locations to find those jams that combine your stay with wine. And we have our member, you will be talking to him later, Sylvain. And I was actually wondering, that would be an amazing combination to make. And he has this website where he does gastronomy in general, wine. So I thought it would be the best combination to do that with travel too, because now we have 11 members active in 11 countries. So it would be very easy to connect that wine to your local area. And Go Local is always very strong these days. We try to support local. We try to eat local, drink local. So might as well just make the information about your own situation, your area, available to others who are not familiar with that area. it's a really nice connection. I was thinking about that. Yeah.
Yes, it's always good to have a personal recommendation, and not everyone knows somebody in Provence, for example, or Perth, Australia. So I think you guys could definitely assist people who have that passion and want to go to know what are recommendations.
Yes, travel and wine go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. And wine travel is a huge portion of the travel industry.
Exactly.
So yes, and we are excited. We do want to have a couple other members on because it's such a different story, and there's so many of you that it will be interesting to hear what their entree into the group at large is and what their personal background is. And some of them do have more personal are more career set into the wine world, correct?
Yes, true. And that's what makes it stronger, I even think, because we have different interests, we have different backgrounds, and we're all free to brainstorm and show up with ideas. And the ideas have a wide palette. You know, how do you call this? A wide range because of those different backgrounds, and that makes it stronger. So I think that's only for the good.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we've appreciated talking to you guys, and we love what you're doing. We love the idea. We hope to be able to continue within the community and talking with you guys and learning and growing our palates by taking your recommendations. And I think the travel aspect is something you should really think about, because that once we are able to move about the world again, being able to have good recommendations from folks that we trust is important.
Yes.
That's a great idea.
It is. I love the idea.
We can talk about that.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's continue to talk. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you so much. And we'll be liking and following and watching each of your individual journey as well as the group at large as well. So, and that's on Instagram. Instagram is a great platform.
Yes. Why don't they go ahead and tell us where can we find you guys?
They can find us at SIPS around the globe, and my personal account is at Wine and Bubble Lover.
Thank you. And John, how about yourself?
Yes, my Instagram handle is at Attorney Somm, SOMM.
Very good. That way people will be able to find you and get your recommendations.
Again, we appreciate having you guys on, and we've enjoyed talking with you guys and look forward to more conversation in the future.
Thanks very much. I enjoyed it as well.
Thank you so much.
Well, that was a fascinating conversation with John and Jessica, and I just love what they're doing with SIPS around the globe.
They truly did take that concept of community and made it global. And yet they still encourage local wineries, local farm to table, but it's local with a global aspect.
Right. It's the global perspective of hearing about what's going on at the local level, and they're just leveraging their reach, which is very, very smart. I like it a lot. I like what they're doing. So looking forward, we have some fun stuff coming up too, and we're in the middle of our summer sipping, which is exciting. We did veer a little bit away and had a little bit of red wine today, but we have been enjoying our lighter whites.
And you can see most of those on our YouTube channel, which is Wines to Find podcast, to be able to figure out what we've been drinking on the side.
Right. And so we have been doing a video each week, reviewing and talking about a light summer wine, because we just found out that we've got so much content on the podcast that we can't feature as many wines as we want.
So we want to feature more. So we've jumped over to YouTube so you can check out those videos and see us reviewing and tasting some different wines, particularly now they are white, and you can see if you would like to try to find them.
Yep. And another thing that we're going to be doing is during season 1, we were doing crushes to let you know what we were crushing on in the wine world. And then during our podcast tour, we were doing our hashtag Napa Sip of the Day to talk about what our tourist takeaway was from those conversations. And now we are doing the
drink of the summer,
our dots. We're going to be letting you know each week what we're drinking, what is our drink of the week for the summer. And this week, what is yours, Sandy?
Mine is the Vino Verde. Michelle has got me hooked on the little effervescent grapes.
That is such a fun wine, and it's light alcohol. It's so much fun for a day in the sun. It's perfect summer sipping.
It is. It really is a great tasting wine. So that is my hashtag drink of the summer.
That's right.
Pinot Verde.
And if you want to see our cute little lake video, hop on over to the YouTube channel and check us out on our lake day.
I don't know if they really want to do that. I'm not a fan of that one.
That was early on in our YouTube career. We're still very early in our YouTube career, but that was super early. So mine would be, I love a mule, and I just think it's so much fun to do different flavor pairings and mixing up. And we were just talking about how last summer I did Liquor 43 mule and how much fun that was. And so I'm revisiting that.
Oh, very good. Yeah. I love a good mule too.
Mm-hmm. Those are fun to have. Nice summer light drinks. So that's what we're going to be sharing with you guys, is what we have been focusing on in terms of our summer sipping as we're doing our weekly wrap up. And we hope that you've enjoyed this episode of Wines to Find and that you're following us on all of our social media handles. We've added YouTube. Again, that was Wines to Find Podcast on YouTube.
Yes.
And we're Wines to Find Podcast on Instagram and Wines to Find on Twitter and Facebook. Where else are we? TikTok?
Not yet.
Look for us
coming
on TikTok soon. Yeah. But we hope you're having a great week and you're enjoying listening along to Wines to Find, and we hope you'll join us next time on Wines to Find.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode of Wines to Find. For today's show notes, visit us at www.pickagreatwine.com. Follow us on social media for bonus and live content. Instagram at Wines to Find Podcast, Facebook at Wines to Find, and Twitter at Wines to Find. And don't forget to join us next time on Wines to Find.